Hello and welcome to this edition of The Payoff. I'm Drew Goldfarb, joined by Rick Rockwell, and we're going to be diving into the world of professional wrestling, discussing storylines, ideas, and of course potential payoffs on prop betting as well. We're going to get into last weekend's WWE Saudi Arabia special Super Showdown and recap the betting results. But first, let's start with a couple of bets that are currently available as long-term plays. These wagers are available through Bovada, and the first is who will be the first WWE superstar to sign and appear in AEW of a list. The odds-on favorites here are Dolph Ziggler, Finn Balor, and Shinsuke Nakamura, all at plus 300 odds or better, followed by Luke Harper at plus 450, and the trio of Sasha Banks, Rusev, and the Revival, all at plus 1,000 odds. Rick, which of these bets do you like?
You know, on the surface, the odds are okay with some of the picks, but it was hard to choose which one was going to be. You know, you want to just say Dolph Ziggler because of where he's at and people want him to be able to go. In my article, I said, if anybody on this list deserves to be freed of the WWE tyranny, it's Dolph Ziggler. He's been there since he was a caddy and a Spirit Squad member and everything else in between. With that said, as I looked at everybody on that list, every option there, I started ruling people out one at a time because I couldn't just pick right away who I thought it would be. So I had to go down and basically start eliminating people. First of all, you can take Sasha Banks off that list because she's still under contract for at least a couple more years. And there's no way WWE is not going to tack more time onto her deal for her missing this time. So get her off the list. Shinsuke is another one you can take off the list because by all accounts, it looks like he has re-upped with the WWE in the last couple months. He was initially reported as signing a 3-year deal back in 2016, which meant his contract would be expiring right around post-WrestleMania. Metzler, he posted in a tweet that Shinsuke was staying when someone asked him. So that gives more credence to the fact that you can take him off the list. Another thing about Shinsuke is he recently said that he wants to wrestle until he's 45, which is about another 5 years. So at this age, for a man who's accomplished so much nationally and elsewhere, getting paid makes sense. Staying with the WWE, capitalizing on their paranoia of overpaying people so they don't leave to go to All Elite Wrestling, makes perfect sense to me. I saw an article on Rusev. He's not happy, of course. Nobody's happy with what they do with Rusev and Rusev Day. They basically had a Kofi Mania situation with Rusev, but didn't go with it. They buried it. Kofi Mania, they went with, and then now he's the champ. Rusev was getting those kind of support from the crowd and the pops that Kofi was getting, and they did nothing with it. They just buried it. They just said, you know what? We don't care. I saw that he's still got a deal that's going to run through at least deep into 2020. I don't see him being one of the next ones to go, so you can move him from the list. Finn Balor, there's been nothing talking about him having really any kind of frustrations backstage or anything. He's an Intercontinental champion. He's had some big pushes in 2019. I don't know how long they have him locked in for. I would imagine they have him for at least another year or two. And I would imagine they would offer him big money to stay with the company. I don't see him going. So now we're getting down to like Dolph Ziggler, Luke Harper, and the Revival. Okay? We all know about Luke Harper. He asked for his release a couple months ago. WWE said no, and then added 6 months to his contract because of the time he missed due to an injury. By all accounts, his contract doesn't end until probably right around WrestleMania of next year. Then most likely he'll have a 90-day no-compete clause, meaning he most likely won't be able to go anywhere until next summer. Okay, so that's like the bar we have now. That's the timetable we have. Next summer be the soonest one of these guys on this list. It seems like the Revival was the one who kicked off this whole public nightmare of people wanting to leave because they're unhappy. They asked for a release back in January because they were unhappy with what was going on with the tag team division and them as a team, their storylines. So WWE gives them a title run. Then they come at them to offer them a 5-year, $500,000 per year contract for each of them. They reject that. Then following that, we see them shaving each other's back in the shower and having whatever poured in their trunks and running around the ring as if they got itching powder in their pants. Basically, WWE burying them as a punishment for not re-upping with them. Now they get the belts again, as if that's going to help them want to stay. Just another example of that wonderful WWE creative writing process that I talk about every week. They rejected the offers. They will not be able to leave until at least next April. They added 2 months to Dash Wilder's contract, which puts him more into May, June. Then you probably have a 90-day no-compete clause with them at least next summer, probably a little after Luke Harper. So you eliminate all these people. Who do you have left? Dolph Ziggler. Well, all I can find on Ziggler is there's no details on what his contract situation is. He said in an interview back in March that he's basically working on a handshake deal. He's been with the company for over 15 years, okay? They don't know how to properly book Dolph Ziggler. He was off TV for 4 months for no reason. Then they bring him back, put him in a great main event feud with Kofi Kingston. We all believe after that's done, he'll be irrelevant once again because that's what they've done with him his whole career. If he's not on a long-term contract, he is the one that makes the most sense here. He's the one that you would have to pick. All Elite Wrestling would be a fool not to get him, not to sign him, you know? He's still a talented superstar on mic and in the ring. And he would have a lot to contribute to All Elite Wrestling. The thing that frustrated me the most about this prop bet is they didn't give us a field or another option. Because if that was the case, it would easily be Gallows and Anderson. Their contracts end in September. You know the history they have with the Young Bucks and some of the other people from Kenny Omega, Bullet Club from New Japan. They would easily end up in All Elite Wrestling once their contracts were over and the no-compete clause was done, which would be by the end of this year. So nobody else could be in All Elite before them, but they weren't given as one of the betting options. Right. So to sum it all up, by process of elimination, the only one you can go with here, unless you want to take a chance on Luke Harper next summer, is Dolph Ziggler right now.
So when I was doing the research into all of the contracts and stuff, and obviously going through like Fightful and Ringside News and finding Meltzer quotes, because Dave Meltzer is usually right on stuff, although WWE he can be a little off now and then because they'll feed him some bad info every now and then. But the last I had heard from Ziggler was a handshake agreement. That was an interview we did on a podcast. The Revival, their contract appears to be April of 2020. Luke Harper appears to be late 2019, although the added months, I'm not sure if that was part of their current count. Rusev is somewhere in 2020. Balor, Meltzer was saying that his push is because WWE understands that he's a special talent. Balor is also one of the guys that they use at the forefront of a lot of their pushing for their advertising, their community outreach things. Balor Club for Everyone. He's a very good ambassador for WWE, as he was a great ambassador for NXT before. Sasha Banks signed her multi-year extension, according to Ringside News, in 2018. So it's definitely not Banks, because we know that they're not going to let, from the Neville Pac situation, they're not letting anybody out. And if they do, they're going to just sit for a long time. I had Nakamura as my pick. I had not seen Meltzer's quote about Nakamura staying. Because the last update that I had was an early 2019 contract expiration. But that would make a lot more sense because we're past early 2019. And while he hasn't appeared a lot on TV, he has appeared for WWE. So for me, it's down to Ziggler and Harper because the Revival's not going to show up split, and one of them has those extra months tacked on. I think that it is if Ziggler has been in a handshake agreement since at least the beginning of this year, because I saw him mention it in an interview as early as January. If he has still been there for 6 months, and he's been put into a nice spotlight here and there. Harper's the guy that is going to try to leave. Ziggler, I don't know that he is a guy who is definitely trying to leave in the way that Luke Harper is, in the way that Rusev is probably frustrated, in the way that Sasha Banks has wanted to, in the way that you could see the Revival wanting to. I don't know that Ziggler has that same mentality. So for that reason, originally I was going with Nakamura, but I'm going to take your word on the Meltzer quote, and I'll find that afterwards. And I'm going to go with Luke Harper because we know he's trying to leave. His contract was up before the revivals. And if Ziggler hasn't left yet, he could just show up at All Out in August, and that would be it. If Ziggler doesn't show up by then, I think it's Harper. And so I would take Harper as you get better than double
he's the best value, definitely.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying. Like the smart money would be on Ziggler right now because of his current contract, lack of contract, handshake deal.
Right.
But the smart money would be on Harper because he wants out. It's just a matter of time before he's done. And I'm almost positive his 6 months tacked on puts him until WrestleMania of next year. And then you add the 90-day no-compete clause, which everybody has pretty much for WWE. And ironically, Dustin Rhodes, he got his released in January, but he didn't talk about it until after his 90-day no-compete clause was over in April, and he was able to compete on the show, Double Down and stuff. So everybody has a 90-day no-compete clause for WWE, even if they let him go. And so Harper, at least you have a time frame when he will be done with the WWE.
Yep.
So wagering on him gives you value and stuff. And the only one, like we were discussing, that could leave before then would be Dolph Ziggler. But as you brought up, it can go either way. He's not one that says he wants to leave, but he's one that deserves to leave.
I think that Ziggler is a pick by the fans. I think Harper might be the pick by the wrestler by the time Harper can leave. That's my thought is I think that the fans want to see Ziggler in a different position, maybe more than Ziggler wants to see himself in a different position. Also,
I think we both would agree though that Gallows and Anderson would be the pick if they were.
Totally. Yeah. No, absolutely. They're there as soon as they can be. But yeah, I also think that the truth is that if you look at the card, the roster that AEW has, to avoid going down the same track that TNA Impact Wrestling did for so long, would he even be positioned any better on the card than he is now? He might win a little bit more, but is he going to be anything other than upper mid card, lower upper card, and maybe the guy to get through? They've already got Jericho as the veteran presence who's actually competing for the championship. They've got Cody, who at some point is going to get into that mix. They've got Moxley. I don't know that Ziggler would be in a better position on the card. He might be treated better. He might be treated more consistently booking wise, but I don't know that he moves up like in standing at all. And I think that if he's had a handshake agreement and if he mentioned it in January, who knows how long he's had it. If that's really all he's operating under, he's had 100 chances to leave. Maybe he thought about leaving and that's why he wasn't on TV for 4 months. And he said, I just need some time to figure it out. And he went on vacation and, said, all right, I'm up for it. I'll stick around. And, so that's why I go with Harper is because I think that Ziggler leaving is a lot more of the fans thinking he's misbooked, rightfully so, thinking he's misbooked and wanting better for him than it is that he wants AEW. Let's move on to our other one. The second wager, also All Elite Wrestling related. A simple yes or no question that is over 5 years in the making. Will CM Punk appear at the All Out pay-per-view in Chicago on August 31st? I feel like this question is probably posed as a prop bet 10 times a year, or at least 4 or 5 when it comes to a major New Japan show or All In last year in Chicago, WrestleMania or the Royal Rumble, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, something to that extent where he could theoretically, anytime the Raw is in Chicago. But here the yes is at -220, and the no, that Punk will not appear at the All Out pay-per-view, is +155. I'm just going to let you go first because I know that you're going to be speaking for me, at least with your answer here. So go on ahead. What are we saying the answer is going to be for this one?
I think you and I both were, when we talked about it off air yesterday, we both were pretty much, this is a landslide for no. And the odds and the value to get on the no was shocking. The -220 odds for him showing up was shocking. I feel like the odds makers are completely off here, and because of that, that's what gives us great value. I mean, this is betting value 101 right here. When you can find lines that you feel the odds makers missed the boat, that's where you get your value. We got great value here in the know. I don't see CM Punk going. I understand why they picked it, because it's in his backyard, because it's a competition to WWE, because he would be a huge star for them, because All Elite would it would make perfect sense to go after him. I argued this in my article, which is up live on the blog. I argued this. If you're going to bring CM Punk in, keep him off, make his first appearance your first TV show episode. Here's why. If he shows up in Chicago, that's great for the crowd and stuff. And yeah, and then people are going to be excited, and maybe they get a replay, or maybe they go check out the video clips and stuff. But what immediate benefit are you going to have other than the fans that have already paid to be there? If you do something like, hey, a teaser video, CM Punk's going to be here in October, or whenever the official date in October for the TV show is, and you know on that first episode that Punk's going to make an appearance, the ratings for that episode would shoot up dramatically. I would imagine would be a lot higher than they would without him showing up on that episode. So why not wait another 6 weeks to have him debut? Give us a teaser video at All Out. To me, that makes more sense business-wise. With that said, if Punk's going to join, why not show up there? I would like to see – I was thinking about this. I actually woke up in the middle of the night thinking about this prop bet. If he does go to All Elite, he needs to bring his wife. Bring AJ. Here's why. You have a ready-made feud with Cody and his wife versus CM Punk and AJ. That would be a fantastic feud. The women can feud. The men can feud. You can have a tag team match between each other. You can have Dustin help out his brother and someone help out CM Punk. Like, you have a lot of options ready right there for CM Punk and his wife to join. Both of them talented in-ring performers. Both of them are good on the mic. CM Punk obviously great on the mic. Both of them would bring star power to the roster and to the show. Business-wise, wait till October. For this bet-wise, pick the no. Like, he hasn't showed up on anything significant for a long time. He's muddied the waters on whether he's even going to go back to wrestling or not. He had that one appearance where you couldn't see his face. He's doing MMA. He's doing commentary for MMA. All of that, though, could be a smokescreen, because this is actually a legitimate opportunity for him to drop pipe bombs every single week on wrestling and the WWE, Vince McMahon, and anybody else he wants to, on a promotion that would probably let him do it.
Here's what I'm going to start with. As a wrestling fan that got back into wrestling in 2011 because of the pipe bomb promo, from a selfish perspective, I would love nothing more than to see CM Punk back in the squared circle, back wrestling, back competing, AEW, New Japan, WWE, doesn't matter. If he did it, I'd be there. T-shirts, I'd be there with whatever they're selling. I'd be with whatever subscription service they're trying to push. That's where a $60 per pay-per-view gets me into. That is, from a selfish fan's perspective, someone who is so appreciative of the 2 or 3 years that I got to watch him compete, that reignited my love of professional wrestling. That said, from a human perspective, he's been out of WWE for 5 years, over 5 years, because it was just ahead of WrestleMania 30 that he left, that allowed Daniel Bryan to get into that position, and we've surpassed WrestleMania 35. I think I went to his UFC fight in Chicago a year ago, specifically because he was competing, and it was an opportunity for me to see CM Punk again in person. He appears to be loving doing the commentary from everything that you can tell from any videos or clips I've seen of him working. I think it's CFFC that he's calling matches. I think he's enjoying being part of the UFC or MMA community as a whole. He's been amazing at trolling fans who think he's going to AEW, responding to random tweets that mention his name with OMG AEW confirmed, which has been amazing to watch. I think that from a personal perspective, I don't know that, and I mean, I don't know the guy, but what I would say is that he, based off of what he had said about the end of his time in WWE, and based off of what you can see and find from him and watch him commentating, and even when he lost his UFC fights in the aftermath of it, you could kind of tell that there was more of the spark that made CM Punk entertaining and fun and amazing as a wrestler was there with him even losing in MMA, or there when he's commentating on MMA, and it hadn't been with wrestling at the end. Very clearly, if you listen to the Colt Cabana podcast that he did famously right afterwards, but he appears to be happy. And if that's the case for him, I would hope that he does that and doesn't go back. And I'll watch on the network, and I'll remember seeing him fight Jericho at Raw in Atlanta and getting to and buying the Money in the Bank DVD, because it literally was that big of a moment for me as a wrestling fan, getting back into it. And getting to see him compete a couple of other times, I believe, in person. But the answer is no. If he goes to AEW, he's not going to wrestle. I just don't see it happening. What I could see if he's going to is if he came back in like Bret Hart to unveil a championship. But is he going to unveil a secondary belt? I don't know. If he came back as an authority figure, it would be kind of ironic. I think that might be something he could have fun with, because it would literally be playing the role of, based off of what he has said, every person he hates at WWE, playing the role of Triple H or of Vince McMahon or anything like that. But I don't see it. I mean, unless he's coming back simply to troll people, which is something that he seems to enjoy. I don't know that. I don't think he's not. I mean, I'd have to go no. He certainly is not competing. I don't really see it happening. The one hang up I would have on saying bet the farm on it is that he said somewhere that he was not approached to be at All In. He didn't say he turned them down. He didn't say that he didn't want to. He said he wasn't approached to do it. And now that there is a company behind it and not just a one-off, maybe they would approach him. Whether he'd say yes or no, it would remain to be seen. I don't see him competing. I don't see him wrestling. Would he maybe show up to screw over Chris Jericho in the main event as a one-off and maybe become an authority figure or something like that? Maybe, but I'd say no. It's smart money's on no. I would love to see him back as a fan. I don't think he wants to come back, and if he doesn't want to come back, he shouldn't. Whether it's AEW, New Japan, WWE, it's been 5 years. At WWE shows, stop chanting for him. I love the guy too. First WWE shirt I bought post 2000 was a CM Punk shirt, but it's been 5 years. WWE fans, he's not going back there, at least not to compete. And the smart money here is on no. If you want to rebut that briefly, otherwise we can move on to the final topic into Saudi Arabia.
The only thing I would say is this is a company that would probably give him a deal that makes him a lot of money, a friendly contract that gives him the schedule that he wants, and the opportunity probably to still call MMA fights on top of performing. I mean, other wrestlers are getting to perform around the world with their contracts with All Elite. We're talking about $1 billion family behind this wrestling promotion. This could be an opportunity unlike any other opportunity he's had before other than the WWE. So I look at that and I say that's possible, but I don't think it's possible for this pay-per-view. So for this bet, I'm with you 100% no.
Well, let's look back now at WWE's third Saudi Arabia show. That's Super Showdown. The 3 matches that we said were obvious picks last week were, in fact, obvious picks. Seth Rollins, Kofi Kingston, and Finn Balor all retained. On the 3 trickier matches, or at least the ones that we discussed in detail, we agreed that The Undertaker would beat Goldberg, and he did, paying out at -110. We agreed that Randy Orton would beat Triple H, and he did, paying out at -125. And we disagreed on Roman Reigns versus Shane McMahon, with you picking Roman, and I went with Shane. The best in the world, Shane O'Mac, won with some help, paying off at +333 odds. Rick, just your general thoughts on the show, on the wagers, on me being correct if you'd like, whatever you want to do.
And the payoff for plus 33 for Shane McMahon was a good one. But that's about all I can say for this show being good anything. This was one of the worst WWE shows I've seen in a long time, certainly this year. This was terrible. Every match lacked reaching the full potential with the competitors in the match. And then when you have the main event being two guys that are combined 100 plus years old, going as long as they did, calling the spots that they did later in the match, how are you surprised? How's anybody surprised that it turned out the way it turned out? I mean, it was terrible. That match in itself was the perfect representation of the entire card. Potential wasted, like a no-duh moment of what do you expect when you put together this way? The Battle Royal, they had the local star win because why? They wanted to make the local fans happy. Every other match was pretty much right down what was expected with who's going to win, who's not going to win, except for the Shane McMahon Roman Reigns one. Your point was valid, and I acknowledged that last week. However, we were talking about Roman Reigns, who almost never loses on any kind of significant show. And this was supposed, and here's the kicker of it all. Here's what just chaps my hide more than anything. They tried to build this as the equal to WrestleMania or better, is what they were saying. And it was the equal to 205 Live or worse. Like, not even, I shouldn't even insult 205 like that.
The 205 Live can be good.
Exactly. I shouldn't even, that's what I'm saying. I take that back. I can't even, like, you got to hark back to WWE Shotgun Saturday or whatever the heck they had that was so terrible. That's what this reminded me of. It was horrible. It was one of the worst shows I've seen in a long time. It definitely, basically, we had a good streak of good events going, and it just dropped. It went just straight down a cliff into the abyss. It was horrible. Terrible show. I hated it.
I've learned my lesson from previous shows, especially the ones that were done in Saudi Arabia. Aside from Titus O'Neil baseball sliding under, head first underneath the ring, which is only hilarious because he didn't hit the metal support of the ring. We would have been talking about a very different outcome otherwise. But it's a house show. And house shows are a lot of fun when you're there. I love when WWE Live tours and they show up on like a random Wednesday or Thursday or something like that. And $15 go in and see WWE, and none of it matters in the long term as far as storylines go, but you get to see them trying stuff out for future matches, and it's fun. It's also very personal. It's very, enclosed, which this show obviously doesn't have, being in a giant stadium. But yeah, the way that they promoted it bugged me, but I understand it because it's, brought to you by the Saudi Arabia Tourism Council, or whatever they're going to call their stuff. That's what this agreement started as. That's what all of these shows are about. That's why they're getting so much money. That's why they're one-upping all of their normal cards. That's why the greatest Royal Rumble was held in Saudi Arabia. That's why the biggest Battle Royal was held in Saudi Arabia. It's because it started, if you remember, and you have to go back to the first one, before, which one was the first one a year ago? I don't even remember. It was
the greatest Royal Rumble.
Was it greatest Royal Rumble first and then something else later on in the year?
I think so.
So
they're all bad. It's like, to me, it's all just one bad show.
Right. They are all bad. But if you remember the first one, because it was before, we're not going to get into the politics of it, but it was before the Jamal Khashoggi situation with Saudi Arabia. They were promoting tourism to the country throughout the entire thing. Between every match was a highlight package showcasing the progressive city of Jeddah and showcasing the natural beauty. It does look like a beautiful area, by the way. Simply put, like from the video that they show, which It's a tourism video, so take it what you will. But that's basically what this whole thing is. It is a tourism ad for Saudi Arabia. It is a PR investment for them, and WWE has to make it look like a big deal to the entire world so that message can get across. That's how that agreement goes. That's why they're being paid as much as they are to do these shows in Saudi Arabia. I think really what it comes down to is we should just be thankful they're not moving real pay-per-views to Saudi Arabia. That's what I have learned. We're 3 down on this. I forget how many of these they're supposed to be doing. We're 3 done at this point. What I would say is that with this show and moving forward, be thankful that this is not a Survivor Series, SummerSlam, Money in the Bank, Fastlane, Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, TLC, Hell in a Cell, or any of those other real shows. Be thankful that they have not sullied the name of Starrcade that they own and put it on a show like this. That is the only thing at this point. It's nice to look at for the betting lines because when you get something like Shane McMahon winning and you can get a 3-1 payout, cool. I guess technically it would be whatever it would be anyway, but but take it for what it really is. This is a house show that they're being paid by a government to help serve as a tourism ad to the world. And for every show that they do where they do not attach the actual name and make it a real pay-per-view, I am grateful for that. The matches are going to be garbage because it's a house show. If you've ever been to a house show in the last 3 years.
And I agree with that. The problem is they waste too much TV time building for this crap, for lack of better words.
Yeah.
It's terrible. It is the equivalent of Bastion Booger. It is horrible. I'd rather see the Shockmaster trip and fall for 2 hours than what I watched.
Well, that was at least funny.
Yes. The problem is not only is there bad storytelling heading into it, the matches themselves don't tell good stories and don't end up being worth the payoff. Yes, I'm using that word because the payoff is terrible when we get to these shows. It's horrible. It's terrible. And the thing that frustrates me the most is they waste weeks of TV time building this garbage up and building up and building up and building up. It'd be different if it was just like on the week leading up to it. They give us more TV time of that because then I'd be okay. But we're talking like 3 weeks of different TV time that they're building up matches and they want you to invest your time and emotion into it. And then they give you garbage. They give you heart garbage. And you know what though? That's par for the course with WWE. It's been more consistent hot garbage than it hasn't been. We get more excited when we get a crumb of something good than when it used to be where we get a crumb of something bad and we can say something bad when it was mostly good. That's where we're at with this industry right now. That's why we're all hoping All Elite does well. That's why we're hoping, we get to see more New Japan and Ring of Honor and stuff because at least they're more consistently better and they deliver better action and payoffs than the WWE does. It's terrible. It's horrible. I can't stand it. I can't stand the WWE. They drive me insane. Their storytelling drives me insane. They're holding wrestlers hostage. You want to talk, speaking of Saudi Arabia, speaking of politics, the WWE is holding wrestlers hostage, legit hostage. Instead of letting them out of their contracts, they add more time onto that. Terrible business ethics they have there. And they bury people on TV just to lower their value. It's terrible. Okay? It's terrible.
Yep, I'll leave that part with you there. And I do agree with you on your point about the build. That, to me, is the most irritating part, is when they basically go, we're now deviating from your regularly scheduled programming of building to the next event that matters to spend a couple of weeks trying to plug this network special. That is, I agree with you, that is a bad thing that comes of it. Politics aside, because this is not going to be a political discussion, but I do agree with you on that is from a wrestling perspective, purely from a wrestling watching Raw, SmackDown Live perspective, the wasted time that they dedicate to building to matches that mean absolutely nothing, as opposed to just having matches with like a week's build or whatever. That's the difference between this and a house show. That and the fact that it's aired on the network and promotes the country like Saudi Arabia. So with that all said,
about that whole thing, real quick, was R-Truth winning the title on an airplane, the 24/7 title back from Jinder Mahal. That was the best thing about the entire experience.
I did tell you, the 24/7 title has a lot of potential. It's I would have loved to see, like I said, Brock Lesnar defending it from his couch, like at home or from his ranch. But R-Truth doing it is, I mean, you know what? The dude has been with WWE for so long. He had a great run before he went to WWE. Well, before he went back to WWE. And this guy, I mean, no, he wasn't believable with The Miz as a main eventer trying to stop John Cena, but that was just because no one was going to be believable trying to stop John Cena like capital punishment.
But he was great, though. Smoking a cigarette. He was phenomenal. Little Jimmy. That was some of R-Truth. That was R-Truth's best stuff. It was entertaining, and it was also right around the time CM Punk went off with his pipe bombs and stuff. Like, it all just worked together. It came together to be that payoff was great. That was great stuff. This Saudi Arabia stuff is terrible. There's no payoff. And then they don't even let it go. They don't just be like, okay, well, we had that event, let's move on. No, now we got to relive it on Monday Night Raw and relive it on SmackDown, and it's got to be included in the storyline. Oh, well, Xavier Woods hit me. That's why I didn't win the match. So now that's going to be a continual thing. They're never going to let it die. Saudi Arabia is terrible. I can't take it anymore. I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah, I do hope that when he does decide to retire, R-Truth for all of the versatility that he has shown. We talked last week, I think it was, about Chris Jericho's versatility. Different kind, but R-Truth is usually very consistent, and whether it was the Little Jimmy as a heel, Little Jimmy as a babyface, forgetting which gimmick pay-per-view he was at, climbing a ladder to try to win at the Royal Rumble match, or that kind of thing, where he would forget what was going on. He is very consistently entertaining. Lower mid-card guy. He had that top-end run, but he is an awesome fit for the 24/7 title. And, if we couldn't have gone with my Lesnar hope of him, like, basically just taping for a weekend 25 vignettes of him, someone knocking on his door or trying to knock him off his tractor only to get a quick F5 and lose, and Brock just laugh and go about his business at home. This has been really entertaining, really interesting, and it's given me another appreciation for R-Truth that isn't just like we're getting another dance segment.
I just hope Little Jimmy inducts him into the Hall of Fame.
That would be fantastic. And that is where we should leave it, because this has been The Payoff. We're going to have plenty more next week as we discuss the storylines as they develop, random wrestling rants, and of course, bringing you available betting lines for pay-per-views. I'm Drew Goldfarb. He's Rick Rockwell. That's Little Jimmy. Thanks for watching. See you next time.